Listen up, stay solid, keep your focus, cause they always switching.
This is how you get the job done. I want a regime change. You can win this war.
Now, this is a new teaser that has been floating around on social media, which does have a few new scenes that we haven't seen before in previous teasers and trailers. I also believe it has a few scenes that I do think we're probably going to see in episode 3 as well. They've teased that she's the brains, she's wit, she's grit, she's fierce, real, and she's also force. With the teaser rounding off with Claudia mentioning she's the white devil. It's mainly a teaser that's focused and centered a lot more on the female players in Force Season 3, and it's probably our cue to talk about where we are with them post episode 2. We know we have Claudia in jail. We know she's going to be in survival mode after watching the trailer for episode 3. We are going to see her in action, and just as I mentioned in my breakdown for the trailer, you never bet against someone like Claudia Flynn. She always seems to find a way, even when the odds do seem stacked against her. And as expected, we also know at some point in season 3, she will be released. We're definitely going to get into that in a bit more detail in just a moment. We've also got Shanti saying she wants a regime change, and also putting a baseball bat to what may be Janard's Lambo. There's also a scene of Tommy and Maria, and you guys all know my prediction when it comes to what I believe is next. Another power pregnancy. But will this time be any different? And finally, law enforcement. We've got Stacey Marks on the hunt, but I do also think the tables will turn at some point in the near future, and Vic Flynn will be the one to bring down the House of Cards. So, in this breakdown, we're going to be running through this short teaser, scene by scene, for all things Power Book 4 Force Season 3. Now, we've already seen the conversation and heard the conversation between Claudia Flynn and Stacey Marks. That's something we saw in episode 2. Vic gave her no choice but to give the Viagra Triangle clubs to the CBI. But that also means Claudia now has an in within the CBI, which is through her girlfriend, Elise. A character who just simply isn't built for this world. And I do think we all know the clock is ticking when it comes to Elise's time on Power Book 4 Force. But the most important thing that came out of this conversation was Claudia telling Stacey that she can help get what she wants in exchange for her freedom. That's Tommy Egan. And we know Stacey Marks just can't resist Tommy Egan, which is why I think she'll probably have Claudia released from jail. But just before we get to Claudia being released, this is something I'm sure we're definitely going to be seeing in episode 3. We've already seen a couple of scenes in the trailer where Claudia will have to be in survival mode, something which I do wish they did with Tariq in Book 2 Ghost, keep him in jail, have him have these interactions with Davis McLean, law enforcement, Brayden coming to visit him, Effie coming to visit him in jail as well, and also seeing one of the consequences of what can happen playing in this world. Him getting absolutely battered and bruised to the point where he has no option but to learn how to throw his hands and defend himself. One scene which I will always remember is him versus Salim. If it weren't for Tariq having a gun, Salim would have probably manhandled him and probably won, and that's against Salim Arshay Freeman. But before I go off on another rant on Power Book 2 Ghost, the fact that we do have Gary Lennon getting things right with Claudia in Season 3 of Force, the fact that we're going to see those fights, the fact that we're going to see Claudia in survival mode, this does actually give me a lot of hope for Legacy, where Gary Lennon will address a lot of those issues that probably should have been addressed around Season 2's mark of Power Book 2 Ghost for a character like Tariq, but that's just a side thought. With Force, with Claudia, we're going to see her turn the tables in jail. She's going to show these guys what she's capable of, and as I mentioned in my breakdown for episode 2, or it may have been in my trailer breakdown, Claudia Flynn can be very persuasive, manipulative, and she always seems to find a way for people to do her dirty work. But having said that, it doesn't look like she's going to be wearing the colour orange for much longer. We are going to see Claudia being released from prison, and there can only be one of two reasons why Stacey Marks would let her out from jail. Because don't forget, she's still a part of a huge RICO case. She's lost Markovich, but she was still looking to bag convictions for both Claudia Flynn and Roberto Ortega. But two reasons. One, Stacey Marks has allowed Claudia Flynn to be released because she's going to help her catch Tommy Egan. We know how much Stacey Marks wants Tommy, and to be honest, if you actually gave Stacey Marks a trade between Roberto Ortega, Claudia Flynn and Markovich, where she could swap all those three for just Tommy Egan, she'd definitely do it. The problem is, Tommy's a character who's actually been 3 steps ahead of both Stacey Marks and Claudia Flynn at all times. But is this where the tables are going to slightly turn in Claudia's favour? Does Tommy even know that Claudia is going to be released? Because that definitely is one way to shift the balance of power. If Claudia can go undetected and Tommy doesn't know that she's out, she's making moves in the background, that definitely is one way Claudia can definitely stay 1 step ahead. We only have to look at a recent example in Raising Kanan, Unique. He flew under the radar, causing absolute chaos for Rock and her organisation, and she just couldn't work out who it was. She definitely didn't think it was Unique, that's for sure, because she thought he was dead. Same thing here. Tommy may even believe that Claudia is still in jail. I did mention recently that power does sometimes shift from player to player during a season of Power. One moment it might be with Tommy, the next moment it may be with Vic Flynn. Shanti may also look like she's about to take control. So is it about time where we see this for Claudia Flynn? Is it her turn? Her being around just to cause chaos and pull Tommy in a different direction? It definitely does make sense. At least that's how I'd have Claudia rise to power for a brief period. But that's number one, to help Stacey Marks catch Tommy and also possibly stay under the radar. Now number two, could Stacey Marks' case actually be falling apart due to a technicality or a fault of someone on the team, maybe even a mistake by Stacey Marks herself? That could maybe lead to Claudia Flynn and maybe even also Roberto Ortega being released. We do have to remember that Stacey Marks is under huge pressure. She's also now going through a divorce with Bobby DeFranco while also running for the mayor's office, and she may not be 100% on the ball. When you've got other things on your mind being pulled in different direction, sometimes you can make mistakes. It's just human nature. Human emotion definitely will be at play, and it certainly is normal. That can happen to even the strongest of people. We even have Stacey Marks in the teaser mentioning, if any of this goes sideways, you're next. We've got law enforcement raiding someone's house, they're still going to be on the hunt. So let's see why and how Claudia's released. If it's either one of those two reasons to maybe help Stacey Marks catch Tommy, or Stacey Marks' own case is blowing up because of a mistake that either she made or someone on her team have made. But let's move on to a few new teaser scenes with Shanti. Now we've got Shanti saying that she wants a regime change, she's in the streets hustling, doing her thing. We've also got her looking at the whole board plotting her next move. But we've also got her putting a baseball bat to what looks like Janard's Lambo. And we do have to ask the question, what's changed with their relationship? Because just recently towards the end of episode 2, we saw them having a candlelit dinner, they were looking like they were on the right track, love seems to be in the air. So, what changed? Does she think that Janard is back on the needle? That was something that she was slightly worried about in episode 2. Is it because he's gone back on his word on killing Diamond? Because we all know he definitely does have his doubts. I constantly refer to his demeanor, his facial reactions whenever Shanti mentions taking Diamond out. Has he changed his mind on how they deal with Diamond and the CBI? Is he making moves for himself and leaving Shanti out the plan? Now that it seems like he's on the right track to control the CBI with Diamond, could definitely be a few different reasons. But it also matches up to why Shanti will go over to Tommy and probably tell him that these brothers are going to be looking out for themselves. I really did wonder whether it was a play from Shanti with Janard, but now that we've seen this particular scene, I do think Shanti and Janard are going to have a huge falling out, where Shanti does flip-flop between the brothers and Tommy, but still maintaining her end goal and working for herself. Gary Lennon teased that she's someone who will always have a counter move, someone who will always do what's best for herself, and I do think time is approaching that moment where we do see Shanti putting things into motion. But let's move over to the scene between Tommy and Maria. Now we've got Tommy and Maria and it looks like Christmas certainly hasn't been cancelled, but it does look like it's come early. Maria's holding a stomach and in my opinion, she is definitely pregnant. I've been saying mainly for around 2 years now, ever since we saw the scene when they were strolling in the park. They had the conversation around kids and whether they saw themselves having kids in the future. We then saw the hallucination scene between Tommy and Holly Weaver. That was something that brought Tommy to his knees where we saw him reach out and touch Holly's baby bump, which I do think was very symbolic. Not just because of OG power and Tommy killing Holly when she was pregnant, but also foreshadowing Tommy's future with Maria. So I do think Maria is pregnant and I do think this is probably the moment where she gives Tommy the news. However, Holly did also warn Tommy in that hallucination scene as well.
You can't have both worlds, Tommy.
Now she warned him that he can't have both. He can't be in the game and love at the same time because it just doesn't end well. Based on Tommy's history, it has never worked out. But having said that, has Tommy actually learned from his mistakes from OG Power? I do think that will add a very interesting dynamic that we've never seen before from Tommy's character arc. Tommy knowing that Maria's pregnant, him protecting Maria and their baby, him potentially doing things very different compared to how he did it back in Power. I guess the difference between Holly and Maria being pregnant is that Tommy never actually knew about Holly's pregnancy until after her death. If he'd known that she was pregnant, things would have definitely turned out different. You saw how distraught he was by actually killing Holly in the first instance. He knew he made a mistake, but then what killed him even more was finding out that she was pregnant shortly after. But now that Tommy seems like he may have a second chance if Maria is pregnant, and I do think it adds a very interesting dynamic to Tommy's character arc that we haven't ever seen before. How does Tommy behave? Does Tommy potentially see life differently now that he could have a child of his own? Will he see what Ghost saw in wanting out the game to protect his family? I personally believe that Tommy will be in the game no matter what, but if there was anything that would cast a seed of doubt on that, then it has to be this. I did also write a thread on this particular topic around 2 years ago, and the points definitely still stand as of today. So let's wait and see. I do think we're approaching the moment where Maria tells him, and then let's see whether it's something that does shift the thinking and the mindset of a character like Tommy. I still personally don't think it will, but again, if there is a moment that would, if there is something that would shift Tommy's mindset, it definitely would be this. But that's where I'm going to wrap things up for this new teaser. We know Claudia Flynn is about to be in survival mode, we know she's about to be released at some point in the near future. My thoughts around this particular topic is, will Tommy know that she's been released? Or will she go under the radar for a period of time where the balance of power does start to shift in Claudia's favour? Something also seems to have broken the relationship between Janada and Shanti, and with law enforcement, Stacey Marks is under big pressure to deliver. And will the House of Cards also start to tumble, as it always does with law enforcement in the world of power? With that being said, the floor is now yours. Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.